Larsson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! O'Reilly, how about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik Larsson, and Rodgers! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Celtic Unrestricted View. My name is Ryan Crawford and as Yamada next in the door, Celtic are now in Portugal, from Ireland to Portugal. Join me in this episode is my good man Shaun and Barry. So two brothers, we're back. How are we lads? Hope you're well. Barry, start up with you mate, hope you're very well. Glad to have you back on. And as you can see my face mate, the sun is shining in Glasgow. Celtic are back this weekend, so it's all rose in the hood mate.
Hey Ryan, great to be on mate, looking forward to the chat, thanks for hosting, and just a wee word there about that intro, you know, JP's getting good at this, that was even quite inspirational, some of that commentary. So good evening to all the viewers, looking forward to getting a good chat, and yeah, should be good.
And yourself Shaun, hope you're well as well mate.
Aye, all good here, Ryan. It's good to see you again, mate. Hello to all the viewers as well. Looking forward to getting stuck into another chat about Celtic, which we all love and enjoy.
Sent me some comments as well. Our good man JP says, he's talking to Thomas actually. He says the fee for Yamada has been agreed. Yep, apparently it has been, so we will touch on that tonight. Big Rab, evening gents. Hope you're well, Rab. Nice to see you, mate. Hope you're enjoying the sunshine. B. McLaughlin says, evening all, hail, hail. The Fence says, hail, hail. Hail, hail to you as well. Our good man G-Doc is on. He says, evening all. And another evening troops by the Celtic follower. Well, lads, obviously, like I said there, there's a good man. What's that? Plunge. A couple of marquee. We'll get on that, mate. And Nick Connolly says, evening, lads. We'll get back to some of you as well. And there's a few good evenings, but we'll touch on the first topic of the evening. It will be Callum McGregor. It's a topic in a few pods on here before about him eventually when he retires or when he obviously maybe his days are numbered, gives his legs. When do we start looking at a replacement, Barry? Be a bit different. I know a lot of people won't really be talking about McGregor now because of transfers and everything else. But in terms of McGregor, I think it's a good way to kind of maybe start tonight, Barry. Something different. Maybe give people a different kind of perspective on things at the moment about instead of signing wingers or strikers. When do you look to McGregor for the next captain or to replace him in midfield? So starting with that, Barry, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think Lennon Miller, we've just seen somebody there, Brown Warrior says Lennon Miller, could that be one to get him in and look for that replacement for McGregor in the future, or do you see about something else, mate?
Yeah, I'd be quite interested to see the viewers getting involved in this and seeing the comments because there may be a difference in opinions here. Callum McGregor's 31. He's really robust. He plays more football than any of the club practically. He almost never gets injured. I know he has had some issues, but you know, he does play a lot of football. He's retired from playing international now, which obviously benefits Celtic. And in terms of his position in that number 6 role, I know it's called the defensive midfield role, but he's such a cultured footballer. He does that side of it, but he starts the attacks for Celtic. He's chipped in a lot of goals last season. And he's technically very good. He keeps the ball well. So you're not just getting a sort of old-fashioned, hard defensive midfielder. With Callum McGregor, you've got an all-round footballer, and he's a Celtic man. Been at the club, you know, other than a loan spell away, he's a one club man. So, and his character, leader, somebody who gets the club. So I wouldn't even in a rush to replace Callum McGregor. I don't think anybody's really saying that. However, the subject is, do we need to be sort of priming somebody to come in and be looking one eye on the future? So I would say I think we should be doing that. And I have said on here before that I think Lennon Miller is a no-brainer for Celtic. I do think we should sign him. The problem you've got, Ryan, is if you sign somebody to sort of prepare them for Callum McGregor's role, when would they play? When would they play any football? Because Callum plays just about every game. So I don't know. It's a difficult one because we're not going to invest a lot of money to bring somebody in who's going to play second fiddle to Callum McGregor. Ideally, and I know this is an ideal world, there would be somebody coming through the youth that potentially could take that role. But who plays there if Callum McGregor's injured or unavailable? We've seen Bernardo do it. We've seen Arnie Engels do it. So personally, I probably would go with that approach for now. I wouldn't be looking to sign anybody up at the moment, is my view.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you made, Barry. Ideally, you'd maybe want to go through the same route as Callum through the youth and try and nurture somebody through. As it stands at the moment, off the top of my head, I can't say that any midfielder stands out for his position, so you might need to then look what you've got at the moment, mould them into a position, as you said there, or do you try and look at Lennon Miller, or is it somebody else in the pecking order, maybe who we're interested in the world of football, who knows? But Shaun, I know that's a topic yourself that you like to get into, mate. It's not about the placement at the moment, it's not about talking about the team at the moment, it's about thinking ahead, like I think it was Big Grab or Brown Warrior says in the comments about being ahead of the curve by buying Lennon Miller, but it's about as a club been ahead of the curve because I don't think we've done that with Scott Brown. Obviously, due to the COVID situation, Scott Brown probably had to play more than maybe ideally if the season was going away. Scott Brown might have been took off at half time or took off at 60 minutes, and that can manage him off after the European games. Ideally, I think we'd like to do that with Callum in the future because I think it was Brown Warwick says in the comments here, Shaun, that if maybe say 60 minutes and we're maybe 2-0 up, 3-0 up at Celtic Park, you can take him off because you've got Bernardo potentially on the bench, McKibben potentially on the bench to come in and step in, and obviously quality might drop a wee bit, but the team's not going to be dismantled with them coming in and Callum going off. So what is your thoughts on that, Shaun? Do you think we need to try and be ahead of the curve and not plan right now at this moment, but at least maybe the next 18 months try and see what the future holds in that kind of position for Celtic?
I do, mate. I agree with a lot of the listeners' comments, and obviously what Barry had said there. He is still young. He's 31, and he has got plenty more in the tank, and he had arguably one of his best seasons for Celtic last year. He scored quite a lot of goals, and he was instrumental in a lot of our results, for big results. So he is still a huge player for Celtic. My opinion on it has been for quite a while now that just to get somebody in and learn from him. McGregor benefited from Scott Brown being captain and being there, and under his leadership, because Scott Brown set the standards at Celtic, and just fluently, you wouldn't know. Scott Brown was a huge player for Celtic, colossal in midfield, and when he left, did we miss him? Because no, we replaced him with McGregor. He's that was his. That was who he crafted and moulded into, the captain that he is now. And I think just getting somebody in, I agree with the listeners and Barry and Lennon Miller. I would like to see Lennon Miller come in. He's young, Scottish. He knows Scotland. Knows what he's played against both sides of the Glasgow Derby, so he knows what it's going up against these teams. So. And what it takes to play at these stadiums as well. So I think getting him in would be a no-brainer. But certainly, I really do think the new, just to plan ahead, because I don't know who in that Celtic team the new would be a ready-made successor to Callum McGregor. I know people through with Tierney coming back, AJ. I do like AJ. you know, and he has got all the qualities there, a strong captain. And Tierney would be perfect, but he's just, would his fitness hold up to be a captain for Celtic for a full season? I don't know. So I get somebody in, show him the ropes, learn under him, and we've got a ready-made captain for when Callum can no longer do it for a full season.
Obviously, hot topic at the moment in Scotland, Barry, is Lennon Miller. The Motherwell managers came out, I think, the day or yesterday, says there's a bit more interest ramping up on him. Do you think, on the perspective of Lennon Miller, do you think Celtic might be, not be cheeky, but do you think they might be just trying to say behind closed doors, right, we'll see what's happening with him, what the bids are, because it's obviously known they try to get him in January. They're probably still on the list for him at the moment, interest-wise, obviously no official bid, because they've probably heard about that, Barry. So do you think that's my one to keep an eye on? Me personally, I think he's probably one of the only up-and-coming Scottish players at the moment that you would think would at least probably go on Celtic's bench and potentially contribute in the team. Like you mentioned, you and Shaun mentioned McGregor. When does he play? Because you've got Tatty there, you've got Engels, who the manager's paid a lot of money for, and by the seams yet has a lot of faith in him because he played in majority of the games. You've still got McKibben there, Bernardo. Me personally, I think Miller might play potentially front of McKibben, at least potentially. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. But Lennon Miller, Barry, should we sign him? And do you think it might be one of the ones where it's potentially left to the last minute?
Well, I've seen some really good comments coming in there. A couple of points I picked up on. I think one of them was that Callum McGregor doesn't have to play every minute for Celtic. So, when Celtic go a few goals ahead in a game, particularly at Celtic Park, I would like to see Callum McGregor substituted a lot more during those games. When the game's wrapped up, there's 25 minutes, 30 minutes to go, take him off. He doesn't have to continue to play those minutes. And the other one was, I think JP mentioned it to somebody else. It does look to me that Celtic are going to play with a double pivot this season and a number 10. So that will help Callum McGregor. He's not going to have to do the same amount of running that he's had to do over the past few seasons. Who knows, that may be part of Brendan's thinking. But it also allows for somebody else to play it beside Callum McGregor, still having a lot of impetus to go forward, but with the sort of core duties being that sort of defensive side. So to me, that's perfect for Lennon Miller. Lennon Miller and Callum McGregor together on paper looks perfect. If Celtic do go with that system. The problem you've got there, Ryan, as you've mentioned, you've then got Rio Hatate, Arnie Engels, Paolo Bernardo, Luke McCown. Where do they feature? Because I think Nygren is going to be Brendan's number one for the 10 position. That's my feeling on it. So you take everything into account. Should Celtic then still go and sign Lennon Miller? I wouldn't want to face another John McGinn situation. That's the fear I've got. I don't want Celtic to not sign that boy and he goes on and he has a stellar career and he goes to prove that he's a top level footballer. To me, Ryan, he does look that way. Anytime I've watched that boy, Shaun made a good point. He's performed well against Celtic and Rangers. And to me, the most impressive thing about him is I've seen him play as an advanced midfielder and play really well. I've also saw him play as the number 6 and play really well. So, just on performance levels alone and, the qualities he's got, yeah, I think so. And the fact that he's Scottish, as we've said, absolutely. It might just be timing. The timing might not be right for him. I don't know. But if you're asking me if I'm the Celtic manager right now, am I signing Lennon Miller? Definitely.
I think in terms of that, Barry, sorry, Shaun, what Barry says there, I think it could be the price as well. Because I don't know the actual cost that Motherwell have put on his head. Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 7? It will be probably 5 upwards. Just say that as a line, Shaun. £5 million for an 18-year-old at the moment. People might think because he's playing with Motherwell, he's in Scotland, but you don't remember he's captain of Motherwell captain him in a major, I think it's a major semi-final or final at Hampden. He's obviously been capped with Scotland. I think now he's in the squad for Scotland. I'd imagine every squad for Scotland he'll be in, potentially going forward if he's playing Motherwell every week, or if he goes to Celtic or abroad, wherever he goes. I think £5 million could be a snip at the moment. If you're talking 10 million, then it's a different question, because then do you go, right, do you pay that for him maybe not to play? Like we mentioned there, McKibben is liked by the manager. Bernardo, for me, I like Bernardo. He's just been very unlucky. His injuries, he plays a lot with Portugal under 21s as well. So I do think that it's a signing that we should do, Sean. But again, I think it is personally on, is the price right as well? Because realistically, do I really see Celtic giving Motherwell only a rival, Sean? But I don't see Celtic giving Motherwell £10 million. I just don't see Celtic funding Motherwell like that. Maybe 5 million, maybe 4.5, whatever. I think it could be, me personally, Sean. I think Celtic might just be like, let's keep an eye on the situation, see what the bids are, see what the interest is, and then maybe put the feelers out. Right, if they're maybe bidding 4.5, we maybe go 5.5, we might 10% sell-on clause or whatever they decide to do, Sean. But I do think it's something that we could potentially hear a wee bit on in the next few weeks, mate.
I do agree with you, mate. You know, there has been a lot of talk, certainly for the fans. You know, normally when that's happening, you know, there is work going on in the background and all. But I think like 4.5, 5 million. You know, if you're getting them for that, I think it's a no-brainer. You know, like Barry says, he can play in like a number of positions, and McGregor and, you know, Miller in the central midfield position. I think that would be fantastic. And he's got youth on his side, but I agree with you, mate. I don't think we're going to pay nowhere near 10 million. We're not going to give Motherwell 10 million for the boy, but certainly between 4.5, 5.5. I think go for it.
Good comment there from Typhoon. Barry, having a big advocate, talk about advocate, Big Alan, who is on the podcast. Hope you're well, Alan. He is a big Lennon Miller fan, and he has been pretty vocal about signing Lennon Miller, and he doesn't care about the price. If it's 10, 12, 8, 9, 5, whatever it is, if it's a free Haribo packet, whatever it is, Alan's saying get him in the door. To be fair, he has been pretty vocal on it. But in terms of Typhoon's question there, Barry, I've been a pretty vocal advocate in terms of we do need a bit of a bruiser, a bit of that nastiness, because I do feel we're a wee bit too nice. I think most of the players are all technically gifted, and like Tiogo, Hatate, and potentially Yamada. I don't know about him, so he could be the same, but they've just the way their culture is, they're just nice and they're friendly. They help people up. They're none of that like sit down you and derby games. That they've not really got that in them, which is fine. That is the way they brought up, and it's the same with the French. People think they're lazy. They're no. It's just their attitude. That's just the way they are. It's just they're just laid back. But you see us like Scott Brown. It's like you, Dafty. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way they are. That's just the way Scott Brown was. But I think we are missing that in midfield. I think Lennon Miller might bring you that, but I think especially for Europe, Barry, I don't know if we'll do it, because I don't know if we need another centre mid at the moment. But I think someday they might not need to be the best player, but with that kind of, obviously, listen, people are always going to say, Barry, about European ready or first team ready. What is that? How much does it cost? But maybe a wee bit of experience, maybe somebody's maybe 26, 27, big, tall, maybe, I don't know, but can play football, but somebody with a wee bit of nas, especially going to Ibrox and places like that, Barry. I think it's maybe something, if it's not this season, I think next year we are missing that type of player.
I think the club tried a few years back, didn't they? They brought in Abelgard.
Mind, what was his name again? He thought, well, Rodgers mentioned him about if he tried to mould him into Brown's replacement. Abu Kouassi signed him as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So, but the boy Abelgard had a really top profile. Had the stature, had the size, had the physicality, but didn't fit. So I think the club have tried to get players like that. I'm going to throw a wee curveball here with the Lennon Miller situation. And I am I am interested to see what Aaron's top price would be. Just how much he would be willing to pay for Lennon Miller, because I'm in the camp, I wouldn't pay outright any more than £5 million. So that would be my sort of total outlay, £5 million. I would consider signing Lennon Miller at a lower fee if Motherwell would accept having him an extra year on loan. So if Celtic could strike a deal with Motherwell whereby they get Lennon Miller at maybe a lower fee, say 3.5, 4, but we loan him out for the season to him, that could be win-win, because it means we get the asset and we don't lose out on a player that has quality. But because the timing's no ideal now, we don't have to rush him into the team or worry about giving him enough game time. So I think that's something I would consider if I was on the Celtic board. But in terms of that style of player, I just think sometimes it's hard to have your cake and eat it. Celtic are a technical team. That's the way we play. We're a technical football team. We buy technical players. Brendan spoke about it in the press up just the other day there. This is a club that tries to play the ball forward. We're a club who try to play through the lines. We try to play football. We try to play possession-based attacking football. So, if you sign a big number 6, somebody who's got that side to them, it's unlikely that they're going to have the qualities Callum McGregor's got as well. So to get that type of player, you're talking serious money, or you strike hockey and you buy a young player who develops into that. So I'm not sure about that one, Ryan. I think it would be ideal to have a bit more physicality, but I do think Arnie Engels brings that. I think Arnie Engels has got that physicality, that running power. He's a good tackler, covers the ground. But you know yourself, because I've said this on the pod and I've said it privately to you, I think Arnie Engels' best position is further back, deeper. So I think you'll see a better version of Arnie Engels when you don't have as much pressure on him to go forward. That's my feeling on it. You're throwing some love bombs out there, Alan, for Lennon Miller. Top man, love it. So I think we would all like to have tricky wingers and goal-scoring forwards and bruising centre-backs, and we all want that stuff, but you have to work within your means. That's what we've been good at for a long time. Callum McGregor is the man for all occasions. I wouldn't be looking to sort of get anything for that position. But I do like the idea of Celtic playing the 2 number 6s, because the person who's playing beside Callum McGregor is getting an initiation into that role. So initially they would come in and they would have some responsibility to go forward, as I've said, but predominantly they would be asked to stop attacks for the other team. So I think Arnie Engels is that guy. That would be, for me, if Brendan is going to play 4-2-3-1, which a lot of us think is going to be the case, the 2 central midfielders, the 2 number 6s for me, pick themselves, McGregor and Engels.
Put this one to you, Barry, then I'll get Shaun come back in on what you said there. Could Bernardo be a Bruni type player?
I don't think so. No, I don't think he doesn't have that determination and character. And I think he's more box to box Bernardo, isn't he? He's one of the guys you could never see him playing in the number 10 position. That would be too advanced for him. But when you see him playing in the number 6, you think he's not quite physical enough for it. So he's somewhere in between for me.
I think I'm going to go with you that, Barry. I'm a big fan of Bernardo. I think he's technically very good. I think he's very, very fit as well. When he's back to full fitness, I think he's very, very fit as well. So in terms of what Barry says there, Shaun, about obviously a big bruiser in the middle of the park, and I know it's kind of a dying breed now because no many teams have got that. It is more like a technical game now, like you see even like PSG. There's no really get bruisers. It's just all nice, technical, really gifty football players. Man City, Arsenal, it is a dying breed. But maybe in Scotland, you might need that odd play, because we did see some derby games, a wee bit of needle, and sometimes it's probably the only thing I'll say they've got upper hand in us is maybe physical. I think they're quite physical. They've always been like that, kitting and strong and one dimensional, long ball, hold it up, try and kind of shove you off the ball. I think it's maybe something potentially I'd like us to do, Sean. But like Barry says there, how do they fit into the team? Because it's not your style of play. But is it one of the ones, Sean, where if you do, like Barry says, you do get a gem or a cut price, and you just maybe try and fit them into certain games and just manage them?
Aye, no, I completely agree, mate. It's hard to go out and find a centre midfielder that's, like a Scott Brown or a Neil Lennon. When you get these guys, you wrap them in cotton wool because they're a dime a dozen. You hardly come across them. It's a dying breed in Scotland, like you said, because it's all technically gifted players, people from abroad. We're not seeing many Scottish players come through that are hard, central midfielders. And you're right about the other mob there. They're physical. But listen, Brendan Rodgers, his style works for Celtic, and it has done whenever his 2 stints at Celtic. So I wouldn't be looking to I don't think we need to add something in there that's hard or. We had it with Scott Brown and it worked, and it works with Callum McGregor and all. Callum McGregor gets stuck in, do you know what I mean? And he's got it all, as Barry said. Play the ball forward, he can defend, he can tracks back. He's got the full package. So I don't know if we need somebody else in there. I just think we need to be a bit more box clever against Rangers when we play them. I've not got any issue with the way Celtic play, but don't get me wrong, if we found somebody that we could put in there and would do that role and would be that, then fair enough. But it's not something that's I think should be on my radar. But I certainly don't think Bernardo could be like a Brown type player. He holds the ball well, and he plays it forward, and he's neat and tidy, Bernardo, but he's no physical, and he's not going to sprint half the park to bust a lung to get into the box. But I do still rate Bernardo. I know he's got a lot of qualities, and he's still young as well. And he's still learning his trade, that boy. But I definitely don't see him as a Scott Brown type player now.
And obviously the other game, the other night, sorry Barry, obviously Cork City, Anamura, sorry, yeah. He got his first few minutes as a Celtic jersey. If you looked at Twitter and he was on his Ryanair flight to Scotland, I think he might have turned back. Nobody wanted him, and why be signing this guy? And maybe a few years ago I might have been like that, but I'd like to think I'm going to say I'm wiser, but I'd like to think I'm mature and that whoever we sign, I'm just going to let them come in and see how they are, because if you go back to Big Chris Sutton at Chelsea, didn't do well. Good signing for Chelsea. Thought it was going to work out. It didn't. Martin O'Neill knew about him, took a chance on him, and it worked. It could be the same for Yamada. It could be the same for anybody. It's hard to judge when you don't really see the players. So you can go on data and stats analysis. It gives you a brief guide, but until you see the guys in one of games, it's very hard to judge, Barry. But on the new signing at left back, who did come in and play left back, I know he can play centre back as well. That's where he's predominantly played. But what was your first thoughts of him, mate?
Well, I think touching on the signing itself, and a lot of people confused with the signing, and a lot of Celtic fans just didn't welcome it at all. I think we shouldn't forget that we're in the position we're in now as a football club, a rich football club, a financially stable, a financially wealthy football club, because of our player trading model. That is what makes Celtic in Scotland a unique football club, and we're never going to stop bringing in players who we see as assets for the future. That's not going to change, and it shouldn't. And I wouldn't want us to get too focused on the players who came here and not developed and went on to be assets for the club. I'd rather focus on the players who have done. So the fact that Celtic are still looking at markets where they can bring players in who they feel they can develop and sell at a later date is no surprise. And I'm glad the club are continuing to do that. That being said, I was sceptical about the signing because the reports that I had read and heard from Japan was this guy was in his infancy as a player. That he hadn't really played a lot of professional football, and he was raw. This was the kind of message I was hearing. On the other side of that, and he went on to show this in the game that we saw. It was mentioned about his range of passing and his ability to pass forward and how comfortable he was at running out with the ball. All of this was profiled from centre back. But of course, when we watched him play left back, I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And the positive remarks that I had read about him were all on display in that game. He did travel well with the ball. He did play it forward. He did show a good range of passing. He did look really comfortable on it. And I know you need to caveat it by saying the opposition. I get that. But, we've watched football long enough, you can spot attributes in a player, and he's certainly got attributes in Brendan. Remarked after the game, I need to reevaluate this because that boy's showing a lot of promise. So, again, it goes back to Brendan Rodgers will have the final say on players at Celtic. But there's a big scouting network there. There's a lot of people in positions, and their job is to identify these players. And I'm open-minded to it. So, yeah, I think early signs for what I've seen look promising.
That's quite a good point as well from DVP. Jota, if you look at his background, 3 to 4 clubs, he was okay in and out, but he didn't really do too well. You can't judge till we see him. No, you're pretty right on that. Maybe years ago I was pretty why be signing him for $2,000 or 1 million or $5,000 or whatever we're signing cheap signings for. But then you look at what Anne's done, and listen, I think personally, Shaun, I don't think we can judge signings too much until they come because yes, you can have your own opinion and you can say why we're signing him. His data's no good, his analytics aren't good, he's not scored a lot of goals. We'll obviously touch on the striker who's potentially coming as well. But I'm agreeing with Barry. It's just let the guy play, see how he is. I'm no really, like I said to JP all night, I'm not getting my tissues out just yet about the guy. I'm wanting to just let him see how he gets on. He did do well. You can see that he's got a good range of passing. But what I want to see is maybe a better opponent and see how he defend. If he passes well and crosses balls well, for me, it's a bonus, Shaun. Want to see how he can defend. If he can't defend, then I personally don't care how he passes the ball because he'll not be playing. If he can't defend, he'll not be playing. So it's good that he can do that, and it means that it potentially might like Chris Ferreira used to be like, just take the ball out and play it forward. That could be something that he could do big time for us, but we need to see how he can defend first, and hopefully if he plays at the weekend or he plays against Newcastle or he goes to Como, we'll hopefully be able to see more in depth. But in the first few minutes in the Celtic jersey, I thought he did do well, and he can hopefully carry that on to the next few weeks of the season, mate.
I agree, mate. I did see, some of his football for the other night, and he did look very impressive. I think a lot of the scepticism for Celtic fans and all would possibly be coming for the fact that when we have signed, on the Asian market for the defence, it's never really been successful. Kobayashi, Chaduri, if you want to go way back. So it's I don't know. It's maybe they are a bit, as you say, the cultural. They're a lot nicer, a wee bit softer. So a lot of the times, that's where I think the scepticism comes from with the defenders, because Kobayashi was soft. He was brought in as a big, strong centre back, and he was far from it. But I remember as well, like judging people on their first appearances. I remember when Kyogo came on in his first game, and I'm sure he came on at the left side, came on the wing, and I remember thinking, this guy looks like a gash. And Aye, first impressions, mate. You just can't go after them. You need to, see what they're like here a course of time. And with this guy, as I said, I saw his highlight reels on YouTube, and I know you can't delve too much into them, but I liked what I saw him. It looks like he isn't scared to get stuck in, and he can pick a pass. And he's been bold. He's went for Nakamura's number, and also hopefully that's I like the confidence there to say give me that number, and if he can play a pass in like Nakamura can, then we're on to a winner. It's a weapon, Ryan, as well, because we play with high wingers,
Yep.
And we're very advanced, and if we've got somebody that can play a pass from the back out to our wings, that's an added weapon to our side, mate. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the boy play some more games and seeing what he's like up against Scottish opposition, because that's where he will get tested physically.
Yeah, no, I think I'm totally agreeing with you that, mate. In this country, it is physical. Like you've said, you've got teams like Aberdeen, even though it's St Mirren, Dundee, you've got Livingston now as well, going to the Macaroni Stadium, which is totally different from Japan. It's night and day. AstroTurf as well. And we've seen guys like even Big Chris Julian, who I thought was pretty decent, goes to Kilmarnock or Livy, and for whatever reason, just couldn't cope with it. But then against Celtic Park, against European teams, he was fine. He was perfectly fine. So, like you says, mate, it is something that could potentially be a weapon for us as well. So, Big Rab says to me, Ryan, I remember you says Taylor couldn't defend, yet he played every week. Bryn's a manager, Rab. I don't pick the team, mate. If I pick the team, Greg Taylor won't play every week for Celtic, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's just me. I thought Alex Valle was actually a better defender than Greg Taylor when he played, but Greg Taylor's better going forward, and he was better inverted, and that's what Brendan likes. And but no matter what I say about Taylor or Reader or Scales or Young or Forrest, McGregor, Ben's a man. I'm just a fan, so he's not going to change his mind because a wee guy for East in Glasgow's talking about him. So, I don't think, especially Europe, I think Greg Taylor was exposed, and I think he sold the jersey sometimes. But domestically, he was pretty solid. Had no qualms about him coming and playing in Scotland. But obviously, Greg Taylor's left, and good luck to him. He was a good servant for Celtic, and hopefully his family and his baby have a good future, because living in Greece is a bit, or Cyprus, Greece, love the lifestyle, sunshine. The kid will be brought up in a lovely atmosphere, so all the best to them. Another wee comment as well, I'll put this to yourself, Barry. We will touch on Yamada, 1.5 potentially signing. Stephen McFarlane says, now I've only seen small clips, so I don't know much about him. I don't know if Stephen's seen much of him, but he says this guy is sounding good Kyogo vibes, but younger. I'm not sure about that, Stephen, because I'm not too sure about the player. But he did score some good goals last year, Barry, and in the same team. He's only, I think, 2 goals and 20 goals in the league, I think 6 and 33. Not the great standard this season, but last year he obviously showed in that league and put the ball in the net. Comes to Celtic, Brendan could maybe spark him alive. We've done it with Scott Sinclair. I know Scott Sinclair played with Aston Villa. It's a total different level and player and league. I get all that, but Scott Sinclair came here and we've seen the quality. I'm not saying that's who this guy is, but there's other guys that have came to Celtic. Chris Sutton, another one, came to Celtic, Forest. So this could be somebody that it could be cheap. Listen, it doesn't, for me, sometimes I'm like, does it make sense, this one? I don't know what we're doing it for, but it could be one of the ones where it could be an absolute genius masterstroke, Barry. So, like we say, we just need to see how he comes in. If he does sign permanently, which look like he will. But what's your thoughts on that one, mate?
Yeah, again, I think, you look at his goals to game ratio. The thing is, he's not an out-and-out striker, for what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. He's a number 10, or when he has played up front, he's played as a false number 9. So I think when you compare him to Kyogo straight away, they're two totally different players. Kyogo played on the shoulder. It looks like this boy does most of his work in and around the sort of 18-yard box, which again would tie in with that tweak to the system, if that is what Brendan's going to do, because he's going to need to have options in that sort of number 10 role. So I think that's where the club have identified him playing And for that reason, I wouldn't be too focused on the goals that he scored, because obviously a lot of his football was going to be about creating and sort of linking midfield and attack. So he's 25 years of age. This isn't an 18 or a 19-year-old boy. This is somebody at 25 who should be somewhere near his best, if not approaching his best. So we're getting him at a good age. We're getting him at a low fee. There's very little risk in that signing. Again, it's Celtic need to think of the club commercially as well. We're a big deal over in Japan at the moment. Have been for a good few years. Celtic want to keep that network open. So that might be a factor in it as well. But it all comes down to, is this player going to have the qualities that Brendan's looking for? If this is Brendan's final year, and I know we are going to discuss that, Brendan Rodgers won't have too much of an eye on developing players if this is his final season. Brendan's going to be saying, well, I want players who can play this season right now. So if he's signing off on these boys, then he's signing off for a reason. He's not just bringing these guys in, he's not just nodding to the powers that be and saying, okay, do it. There must be a reason in terms of the squad. So he must see that there's an opening for guys like this. But yeah, it's we've look at the success we've had with the Japanese players. And particularly recent years, Kyogo, Rio, Dyson, these guys are absolute superstars for Celtic. So why not continue to try and pluck these gems out? Because it's not just about the player and their qualities. Right, we all know this. It's about how well are they going to come and adapt to our style of football in our country. So you may get 10 players from Japan of a similar quality, but only one of them can make the transition. So it's also down to this boy's character. But yeah, any signing excites me, Ryan. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring.
Put this one to yourself, Shaun, and you can reply to Barry, mate. Typhoon says, hi lads, would you agree that Yamada is a stronger player than Kyogo and has a chance to freeze out either from the squad? Personally, me, Typhoon, I can't comment on that player because I don't know much about him. I don't really know anything about him. I just know he scored a few goals last year. I'm not really wanting to do too much research on him because I don't know how good the league is, like I said, with Kyogo and Maeda coming. I only done wee small bits about them because I can't judge them. I don't see that league every week. Like Shaun says about certain players, they can look amazing on X or Facebook or YouTube. So you need to see them in person. Personally, Shaun, I'm kind of hoping, like Barry says, which is good, the commercial side. I'm hoping it's not just a business signing and hope the guy's going to be good. I hope this can come with it and he's good. That's what I would love for to happen, Shaun. But on that question there, I don't think he'd be frozen out, but it poses the question, Shaun, if potentially it looks like the deal's done for him, you've still got Osmond, you've got Ida, and potentially Maeda, so that's 4. As you think about playing Maeda out left until Jota comes back, and then he plays him through the middle, because if we're going to do this formation that potentially we all think he's going to do, does Maeda play out wide? If you get a new winger, or does Nygren play out wide and play? There's loads of places to put these players. So, because for me, I see Nygren's a 10. That's what I see him. That's just me personally from what I've looked at. He can score goals, he can create, but it looks to me that all his data looks to me as a 10. He's just about that. He's not always out wide and he looks creative, really good in the ball, really quick. He scored in Europe as well. So he's got that experience as well. So, but what's your thought on that, mate? Because it is going to pose a question because I still feel, but it might sound mental, even though we're going to sign potentially a striker. I still feel we need to buy a top draw striker. And I mean, like top draw, if you need to go and spend 15, 12, somebody who has got European experience, because I know Ida's got some, so's Maeda, but we've no really got, if you want to call, proven European pedigree, which does cost money. And I totally understand that. And that will maybe take good scouting as well. But where do you see Yamada fitting in? Because Johnny Kenning's here as well. And I seen an article today showing that apparently he wants a new deal, so does Brendan, and he might go out on loan. So there's going to be movement there in and out of some capacity because you're not really going to keep 5 or 6 strikers, Sean.
Well, there's certainly a lot to get stuck into there.
I'm going to make you tea, right? I'll let you jump nip in there.
In terms of the comment from one of the listeners, I mean, it's too early to say if he's going to be, anything like Kyogo. No, Kyogo was a special player, and what made Kyogo really special was, he showed up in the big occasions, time and time again for Celtic. So, to start, maybe talking about him being like Kyogo, we just don't know. And like Barry touched on, they're two totally different players. Kyogo likes to play in the shoulder, and if you want to see this guy for his highlight reels, he likes to drop in, take the ball in. He looks like he can hold the ball up well, play it on. He looks really quite technical as well. So I like the look of the boy for 1.5 million. And like you have touched on it still keeps our commercial value in the Asian market really good. It came for, I believe he's coming for Kawasaki Frontier, where we got Real Hatati for, so it keeps a good rapport with him for any potential future signings as well. And I think it's south. And plus, we've got Japanese players in my squad as well. It's going to just be better for them too. Fresh faces coming in. Boost the morale and the team that way as well. And it's easy for them to transition into the team because they've got guys that have been there and living in Glasgow. They know what somebody for them to communicate with. So it's I like the signing, mate. In terms of will he freeze out Ida? I don't think so. I think the huge talking point is will Ida play through the middle and Maeda out in the left? Will Maeda play through the middle? I just don't know. I mean, there's an argument for both. Maeda was just so clinical and done so well when he was asked to play in that number 9 position that it's very hard to put him. He made it hard for fans to want him to go back out in the left. We loved Maeda out in the left. He was up and down. Tavernier had a nightmare any time he came up against him. He was having nightmares about him the night before. But it's just he done so well, Ryan, when he came into that striker position that it's hard to say you want to put Maeda back out in the wing. But like guys had talked about the other night there, Ida didn't get a full pre-season under Celtic, so we have a full pre-season. Is he going to be a different Adam Ida come the start of the season? I'm not going to answer to that question. But personally, if you were asking me now, I'd probably go with Maeda through the middle to start the season. Who goes out on the left? I don't know. Maybe the new boy that we brought in. We'll just need to see how that plays out, mate. But I definitely don't think this guy coming in is going to freeze out either. And it remains to be seen whether he's going to be anywhere near what Kyogo was for Celtic.
Obviously, before we touch on Barry, the manager situation, we can touch on the guys who were here last year. Will they improve? Ida, Trusty, Engels, the 3 major signings. Firstly, Engels, we did touch on him. He split opinions from the fans. For me, he's been getting more slander in the last 2 games, and I'm all for opinions, and we've all got different eyes for football. But when I see things, I'm like, what's that guy done to get the hate that he's getting? I generally, Barry, can't understand it unless somebody sits next to me with a laptop, with everything, tell me what they expect from Engels. He's never been a goal scorer for Augsburg. Any team he's played for, this is probably the most goals in man and match set that he's had in terms of Celtic. Well, in recent times, the last 18 months, he's, for me, the odd 2 or 3 games, I must admit, I've said it on here, he did go missing, which is, I've said that, so I'm not hiding behind the fact. But overall, coming for a foreign country, only playing 1 game a week to potentially playing 3 in the space of maybe 8 days, 9 days, 2 in a week, 3 in a week, etc. The assists he's got, big performances in Atalanta, Slovan Bratislava at home, Leipzig as well. I don't know what the guy's got to do to prove people wrong. Is he got to go and score 15 goals? Is he got to score 3 kicks? Is he got to do more tackling? Because his running stats are brilliant. His recovery, he carried a tatty in a few games last year, because a tatty, no matter how good he is, he can be a bit lazy. And Engels was covering that. He's fit as hell. I'm not saying he's brilliant, but what I'm saying is the slander he's getting, Barry, is it mainly on the price tag? I think it is, and I don't think it should be.
I agree. I agree with everything you've said. Everything. And another factor to put in there with Arne Engels is that he replaced Celtic's best player last season, Matt Riley. So he was coming in and directly playing in the position that you go there, big JP saying it. So yeah, big boots to fill, but Arne Engels was part of a squad, and he was predominantly a first team player last season who won a double. He was part of a Celtic team that got through to the knockout phase of Champions League football. So he certainly didn't have a bad season. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, which is your sort of subject that you're trying to cover here. We've not seen the best of Arne Engels, no chance. We've not saw the best of Adam either, no chance. And I would even put Paolo Bernardo in there. We've not saw the best version of Paolo Bernardo yet. But that's exciting. As Celtic fans, these guys have got a lot more to give. So what do we expect next season from these players? I mean, I think Yamada does have to do a bit more. If he wants to be Celtic's main striker, he does have to do a bit more. I believe in him. I think he's capable. You know, with what I've seen, his best performances in a Celtic jersey have came in high pressure games, and he's delivered. So it's a consistency thing with Yamada. It's not just game to game, it's in-game consistency. A bit like Rio. You know, these guys are a bit patchy. So, but Adam Maida's young as well. You know, and Adam Maida's not used to playing game after game after game because, you know, he was on the fringes at Norwich. So, hopefully things align well for Adam Maida in pre-season. Hopefully it's a strong pre-season. And I expect to see a much better version of him next year. I think Arne Engels is just naturally going to be better next season. This is a full season under his belt. He understands the expectation better. He's got another year with the same coach. And the boy's ambitious, you can tell. Yeah, he's very ambitious. The self-belief rips out Arne Engels as well. You know, he believes he can go right to the top. I think we will see a better version of him if Brendan changes the system and Arne Engels is a bit deeper on the pitch. Again, I think you'll see a much better version of him. It's a good thing that our team from last season that won a double is stronger right now because Kieran Newby comes into that team straight away. And you would expect Ida to be better. You would expect Engels to be better. You would expect Bernardo to feature more. You know, Luke McCown is now got a taste of what it's like to be a Celtic player. So this isn't a squad, even just for last season, this isn't a squad that has hit the ceiling. Far from it. This is a squad that's still got development in it, and you're going to complement that by signing new players. So, Trusty as well. Look, I'm just going to get on a limb here. I don't fancy Trusty. I don't think he's a great defender. I'm not keen. I watched seen him, I'm just not keen. The reports that had come in for Trusty when he signed for Celtic from Sheffield United fans, one of the podcasts I'd watched, they were a bit lukewarm with him as well. They weren't sure him. So, I don't know. I keep an open mind, and we'll see how it goes. But right now, Celtic's first choice centre backs are probably Cameron Carter-Vickers and Liam Scales still. So I think we need to do something in the market in that area. But for the sake of the conversation here, I think there's a lot of development in these players that were already at the club last season, Ryan. I do think they will improve.
Yeah, like I said on Engels, I agree with you. I don't think he was, I'm not saying he was fantastic, but I can remember the game, we were 2-0 against United, and I actually put it on my Twitter account after the game, and he was unbelievable. The passes he was putting out, the distance he covered, his distribution, everything about him was brilliant that day. And there might have been some of the performances where it wasn't every game, but that's what he can do. And like you says, Barry, that's just in the door. I believe, I've said it, I actually said it when he first came in. I think he'll break our record for when he leaves here. I'm not saying it could be 30 million, 28. I think he'll break it because there's already talk about Atlanta wanting him or there's interest of it in January. And so you're not a bad player if Atlanta are wanting you. We've seen Atlanta. I'm not saying we were lucky to know you beat off them, but we've seen how good they were in that first half. We defended really, really good, and I was expecting the extra half an hour. It's going to come. You just know with Celtic lads, it's going to come. It's going to hit off a defender, and you're oh here we go again. I was expecting that, but it didn't happen. But you seen how good they were, especially in middle of the park, feeding I think it was is it Regretti or the boy up front and Lookman. They were brilliant. So he's obviously got talent, and I agree with you. I think he'll progress. Trusty. No Kane on Amira. You've seen Brendan lip reading weak as piss against Dundee. If he's saying that, he knows that he's got to toughen up. I think Liam Scales is a squad player, so that tells me again. Welsh is injured at the moment. Narovski's away. Lagerbielke's away. Dane Murray, is he going to be? I don't know how much he'll be used. So I think personally, Sean, I think Barry's right that is a position where I think you might need to go and spend a bit of money to get a decent defender. I don't want the board or the recruitment team to be scared to spend money because Lagerbielke and Narovski didn't work, because I don't think they're bad players. I just don't think they're maybe not suited to this style of play. And I think you might need to get somebody to play with Carter Vickers, because Carter Vickers can play football. He can take the ball forward, so you don't need to just buy a ball playing. Just somebody who's physical and strong and playing next to him. And then I think Trusty Scales your backup. I think you're okay. If you need to swap after European games, Sean, then I'm fine with that. And obviously Adamida, for me, mate, John's comment was, why does he get a baton off the fans? He gets a baton off of me, maybe because I was a striker and I just want difference from what the manager wants, which doesn't matter because I'm not pick the team. Scoring goals, I can't argue that. I can't argue a Celtic striker scoring 20 goals. But the argument I would say then, will Simon Murray get 20 goals for Dundee? So is it expected Celtic number 9 to get 20 goals? Possibly. But you still need to put the ball in the back of the net. You still need to do it. Because we've seen Kyle go and go 10 goals to January or something. Would he have got 20 odd goals? We don't know. We don't know. So you still need to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't question Adamida's goal scoring. I don't question his ability to score goals. I'm like Barry. I think his overall gameplay to be the number 9 at Celtic has to be better. We all know Kyogo when he first came in, your Hoopers, your Griffiths and Bellies, etc. Everything about him sharp, crisp, hold up. Everything's top notch. And I think he's, like Barry says, he's young enough to get better. And hopefully, maybe this is him when he goes, right, now I need to go, I'm the main man. And hopefully, this is the year for it, Sean.
Aye, you're spot on, Ryan. I mean, and we keep saying that Ida is still young. He is still a young boy, and he is just at times he is just a bit sloppy in possession. But is that because he's no playing regular and all? He's had to play second fiddle to Kyogo for the first half of the season, then Maeda the second half. I know he came in and got his chance. When Kyogo was sold on, but I know he never took it, but. Would we see a better run of performances for him if he was, asked to play consistently as well? Who knows? But I do still have faith in Ida. I think Ida will come good. And Rodgers obviously, Rodgers wanted him, and Barry said on it, the games he has performed well and has been big games for Celtic. So we can't overlook that and all. You want your striker to show up when it matters in the big games. So, he's only going to get better, Ida. But to touch on the whole Engels argument, I know, debate, and, I know he splits opinion, but I do think we will see a top level player this year in Arnie Engels. I do have faith in him, I know, like you guys do. I think when he first came into Celtic, the first couple of games we saw him, we were thinking, wow, this guy, unbelievable. But I think there's been a lot of factors at work. The 3 games a week. Even maybe the intensity, the demands Rodgers was putting on him. He's no used to that. So I think the early angles we saw when he first came to Celtic, the first couple of games where he looked like, man, we've got an absolute winner. I think that's what we're going to see this season for early angles, and I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and wins Player of the Year for Celtic, a players' player. I think they have that much faith in him, and like you said, his performance against Atlanta and Barry touches on. He's ambitious, and he's a strong boy. He's a big lad and all, and he's no scared to get mucked in. He's no scared to put a challenge in and all. People in the comments are talking about having a big bruiser in there. I mean, Army Engels won't shout a challenge and all. And he's got the technical talent to back it up. So I think this season, we are going to see a different Army Engels, and I'm looking forward to it. Barry touched on as well with, Bernardo and all. These are guys that, we're just waiting for them to, light the stage up at Celtic, and they've got it in them. I like McCowan and all. McCowan's his goal record. Look at his goal record for Celtic. Even Celtic, 6 goals last season. Hardly played it. He was coming off the bench most of his games. He's got an eye for a goal. I like that about McCowan. Scottish as well. Loves Celtic. So in the sense, aye. But if you're going to be for the central midfield area, centre back, I do agree with both of you. I'm no sold on Trusty. I like to look at Big Naroki or Trusty, but clearly Brendan didn't favour Naroki or Lagerbielke because they never got a sniff, and that tells you something. He's seen something that we know, and I like that about Rodgers. It's ruthless, but to be at the level that he's at, an elite manager, you need to be ruthless. You can't play the pals act and keep guys because the fans like them, or Rodgers in the shy of making a decision. So, and we're seeing that at the back, so I do think we need to strengthen there. Kieran Tierney obviously can play left centre back. None of us would turn their nose up to Kieran Tierney slotting in at left centre back. Is that going to be better than having Scales or Trusty? I would say yes. But obviously you would like Tierney out at left back, but it is an option for us. But we definitely need to get a centre back and somebody. Are we going to get somebody at the same mould as Carter Vickers? Probably not, because this guy is just, he's irreplaceable at Celtic. As soon as he's out the team, we look a totally different team. But we need to get somebody as close to Carter Vickers. You'd have thought Trusty would have been a match made in heaven with the American connection and all that, but it's just not worked out, Ryan. And I think Brendan. I don't think he's in Brendan's plans for a first team starter, mate.
P. McLaughlin and Will Trusty and Scales hang around to be backup. I'll put that to yourself, Barry. Me personally, I said that other night to JP. JP was a wee bit. He was like, I get what you're saying, Ryan, but personally, I don't know who would buy Liam Scales on Barry, because if he's going to be a backup at Celtic, I think it's the best move for Liam Scales is to beat Celtic, because I don't know where else in terms of stature of a team. Where would they go? Habs, Aberdeen? Would they go to Botman in the Championship? I don't know where they would go. Trusty as well. Would they go back to the Championship? Would they go abroad? I think they two, in terms of stature of clubs, I don't know if they two would get better statures. Many players will, Barry, but not just they two. Johnny Kenny, maybe Natati at the moment. Other guys in the team won't get better than Celtic. We've seen guys leave Celtic for better, and it's turned out worse. So, me personally, I would say that I think they might be happy financially, but maybe no game time, because Liam Scales is used to playing last year. Trusty was used to playing. Do they really want to just sit and maybe play the odd cup game or the odd league game for Europe if we get a new centre back? But it is a squad game, Barry, and we don't know what happens in football, mate.
Yeah, I think players don't only play football for the love of the game. This is their career. So they're financially motivated. A lot of footballers, look at Kyogo, going to France. He had aspirations to get in the national team. Footballers will go to countries where the weather's good. So there's lots of factors why players leave. Not many players will reach Celtic and go to bigger clubs, but what we have seen is players going to bigger leagues. Where I would slightly disagree, Ryan, is I think Liam Scales would certainly have suitors. There would be clubs interested in Liam Scales. I mean, you look at his CV and his performances at Champions League. This is a guy who's had back-to-back Champions League Man of the Match awards. How many Celtic centre-backs in our history have had back-to-back Man of the Match performances at that level? If there's anybody, I would be surprised. So, and he's performed in the derbies. He's won trophies for Celtic. He's proven that he can play game after game after game after game. Something that not a lot of players can do. So, me saying I would like to see Celtic sign a replacement for Liam Scales is not to suggest for a second that he's not a capable centre-back, because he is. And I'll go further than that, and I would say he's better than Trusty. And it seems Brendan aligns with that because he took Trusty out of the team last season and he put Scales in. So for me, of the two, Scales is a better defender. He's also a Republic of Ireland international. So, yeah, he's definitely got a CV, definitely got the profile. You say lower-end championship clubs. I think high-end championship clubs would look at Liam Scales. No question about it. So, yeah, there would be clubs interested in them. Would they be wanting to play second fiddle? I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. My preference would be to sell Trusty and keep Liam Scales. And keep Liam Scales. And again, it goes back to the whole question about signing Lennon Miller, do we, don't we? These guys now are not going to be bench players. They're going to be rotation players. So it's football differently. There is obviously a certain amount of players who are bench players, but you're sort of looking at 16 players now in modern day football as first team players, rotation players. So even if Liam Scales was, to be told up front by Brown, look, your position's up for grabs. I'm looking to bring somebody in, so you're going to have a fight on your hands. I don't think Liam Scales would shy away from it. I think he maybe would stay. Look at how he got into the Celtic team. He's overcame quite a bit of adversity at Liam Scales, and I think as a Celtic fan, I'm grateful for the service that he's gave the club, because the trophies we won last year, the trophies we won the year before that, he was vital. He was a vital player in us winning those trophies, as was the aforementioned Greg Taylor, who, did have deficiencies, but what a player. What a servant he was for our club. So I would be looking to bring somebody in, but I still wouldn't rule out the possibility that next season our first choice pairing are Callum McGregor and Liam Scales. It wouldn't shock me, Ryan, if that's the case.
I think in terms of Scales, as Barry says, Shaun, I think it's one thing that might give him an advantage over players is availability. Managers do look at that now in terms of how many games you can play, and that might be another thing as well in terms of a lot of fans think that KT's injured tomorrow. Right? They all think that's him injured tomorrow because he's had injuries in the past, so we need to get a left back in who's going to play a lot of games potentially. So if that is the case, that he does get injured or he will get injured, or fans think in 2 weeks' time he's injured again. That's an injured what we're signing him for. We will need to get a left back that can be available just in case that does happen, because it could happen. Listen, KT could get injured walking his dog, he could get injured in training. It doesn't matter, doesn't need to happen on the park. Anybody can get injured anywhere. That's life, in it. But in terms of what Barry says here, mate, what is your thoughts on that? And then we'll touch on the manager situation.
I would probably I would probably agree with Barry. I would probably start with, if we're going to have Scales or Trusty, I would start with Scales over Trusty. I just think he's put in bigger performances than Trusty, and love him or loathe him, he's always there, Scales. He's always there and he's always ready. And like Barry says, Rodgers obviously has faith in him. And there was some games he played. He had fans making memes of him. Liam Scaldini putting his face over pictures of Maldini. He played that good, so and it's the same old story as well. He's only 26. He's an Ireland international. He's came over so much. He's came through so much adversity. At one time, it looked like he's, he was a nobody at Celtic. He was just shipped off to Aberdeen, and it was he's overcame a lot to, back-to-back Champions League man of the matches. I think that was a good point for Barry. How many Celtic centre backs can you say have achieved that? So there is a lot of good things about Scales, but at the same time, we are a club that's ambitious. We do want to move forward. Like you said about KT, KT could get injured walking his dog. Carter Vickers could get injured. There's no assurances with any of the players. But the left back position, if KT does get injured, we are going to look very light. But you could say that for a number of positions on the park. But I've still been saying about the right back position. I don't think, I like Tony Ralston. You know what you're going to get with him. But like I said, if we're a club that wants to be ambitious, and if Alistair Johnson's injured, who is a top level performer for Celtic, are we confident going into a Champions League game with Tony Ralston at right back? Absolutely not. So there's another position that we could be here all night discussing about. In terms of, to touch on I think Scales and Carter Vickers, if that's what we're going to have come the start of the season, I would be happy with that, mate. But I still hope we get somebody in the door, mate.
I think we do need somebody to come in the door, Sean. If that means Trusty and Scales to the backups, then a good man, Francis Lester. Hope you're well, Francis. Hope you're keeping well. Definitely a good quality right back to cover Johnson. Yeah, I think the three is on here. I agree with you, Francis, that yes, Ralston's available. He's fit. He's got that nastiness that I like about him. He is decent. He's commendable, especially after a European game to come in and play against your St Mirrens, and he understands the club, even Rangers. He understands the club, but I think especially in Europe, you see it. If AJ gets injured, for me, the drop in quality is quite significant. And if you're trying to progress in Europe, Sean, as we say, for trying to progress, I think eventually you need to try and get a better quality backup. But then again, for that, I would rather, I'd even go and spend £5-6 million on a top quality right back and just have Johnson and like used to figure out who's playing, train hard and see what happens. But how can you then keep a £6 million or 10 million, whatever it is, happy because you might only play 2 games every 6, 7, 8 weeks? So it's one of the ones, but like you say, Sean, we could spend up a full podcast on with that. But Barry, the last wee bit of tonight, it is going to linger eventually in the next few weeks. It'll probably linger after the transfer business. I'm firstly wanting the transfers in the summer window done first, and then we'll deal with this situation. But it is a good topic to chat about because it is going to come up eventually. Barry is obviously the manager. He's got 1 year left in his contract. He's said he's calm in the situation. He'll talk to Desmond. He'll probably talk to Peter and Nicholson and the rest of the guys, and he'll have a chat about the future going forward. But what's your thoughts on it, mate? I personally feel that this transfer window could be a burn on it. If he doesn't get the players he wants, or it might not be the quality he wants. If they don't qualify for the Champions League this year, I fully believe he'll be away, because I think next year you might need a good few qualifiers, and I don't know if he's wanting to do that. I really don't know, because I think he's wanting us to progress, and I think doing that is maybe a bit regression in his eyes. Maybe, I don't know, Barry, but I think we need to qualify for Europe financially. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think me and you spoke about it a few weeks ago. It's the biggest thing for him here, mate, is Europe, because Europa League, listen, if we tap into that, I'm not going to be too downhearted because it gives us a chance to maybe try and get to the latter stages and potentially, listen, I'm not saying I'm going to win it, but try and get a cup run, try and do Seville there again and try and go and win it. You've got a good chance with maybe, we've seen the quality, Barry, in the Europa League to the Champions League. It's nowhere near the quality in that. But I think if Brendan Rodgers qualifies for Europe and we get in Europe, the Champions League, I think it gives you that carrot to keep him here more than it would if you'd been out. But what's your thoughts on it, Barry? Do you think there's anything that's going to stop it or anything lingering on it? Or do you just think it's to see if you'll challenge enough here to continue as Celtic manager?
Well, I'm delighted he came back. And I've had, the last 2 seasons has been amazing. And, Brendan's delivered. He's delivered in the derbies, he's delivered with trophies. First season back, Champions League was okay. Last season there, probably a wee bit beyond expectations. And I've enjoyed the style of football. I've enjoyed, Brendan's leadership and how he goes about his business and leads the club with great grace and very professional. Everything about Brendan Rodgers being Celtic manager is a joy. And he's stuck to his word so far. He's guaranteed he would be here for 3 seasons. Barring a disaster, he's going to be here for the 3 seasons.
Don't worry, Barry. Seen the first few weeks of his season when somebody's sacked, he'll be linked. Don't worry, mate. He'll be linked.
I know.
The media will have Brett. That's him leaving again.
Yeah, I think Brendan was pained when he left the club. He made a decision. He made a career decision. He made a decision that suited him to leave the football club and pursue his personal career. I don't think he expected the backlash to be so visceral, and he wanted to come back and make that up. For me, he's done that. He's more than done that. And we get into this season hoping that it's not his last. I certainly hope this isn't the end of Brendan's tenure. And I think all the points you made, Ryan, are valid. I think that if Celtic show a higher ambition than last season, a higher ambition than the season before that, then I think Brendan would be intrigued by that. And, I've said this to you privately, Ryan, if Celtic offer Brendan Rodgers a contract where his salary is a Premier League-based salary, top-end Premier League-based salary, and he's given assurances in terms of the spending that Celtic will do this season and next, I honestly, hand on heart, believe that Brendan Rodgers would sign that contract. Because if I put myself in his shoes and I'm a Celtic fan and I'm in charge at Celtic for a second spell, it's probably going to be the last. The chances of him coming back for a third spell are next to nothing. So this is the last kick of the ball for Brendan as Celtic manager. I don't know if he's ready to get up. I don't know if one more season's enough for him. I think he would expand his stay. But I'm going to put it out there and say, Ryan, I think, see Brendan Rodgers doesn't sign a new contract, I believe that'll be because the board haven't offered him enough. That's my view, and I've defended the Celtic board, and I've been quick to point out where our club is run so superior to the other side, and sometimes it's no acknowledged. So I've defended this board, I've defended Dermot, but if Brendan Rodgers doesn't sign a contract extension, it would be the Celtic hierarchy that would be responsible for that. That's my view on it.
I don't know if any of the viewers think the same, but I'm probably going to agree with Barry as well, Shaun. Obviously, it's been challenged, been in Europe, trying to progress the club. I think that's what it all is. It's all about progression. You mentioned that when we first came in, Shaun, about his progression. We were kind of happy that we got a first one in the Champions League and we got a few points better than the last year. Last year, the format suited us, the draw suited us. We might not get that draw again this year, but if he gets the finances to take us forward and give Celtic the best chance, I think that's all us as fans, Shaun, are asking. We're not asking to go and spend £100 million. We're just asking the manager gets the best chance he can to put the best team on the park. We're not asking for mega money. We're just asking that he gets ideally what he wants. And I think Barry's right. I think that if he gets a decent salary, he gets assurances he's going to get the best he can to progress Celtic, because if we do the same this year and we just get pipped again, it's still progression because you've done well in the format. You've maybe just see you get a Barcelona, and listen, let's be fair, let's call a spade a spade. The chance of us beating Barcelona over 2 legs, it's not going to really happen unless you have an unbelievable 2 games and Barcelona, Lamal's injured and they're all injured and they can't play. It's going to be really, really hard. In your heart, you're thinking, right, we'll maybe get a draw at Celtic Park and we'll see. And then it's 4-0 or 5-0. It's very hard to, in my opinion, you've got to be positive, right? But seeing you go to the new camp and you're seeing Lamar, you're like, right, well, maybe just try to keep the score down today. It is hard. Do you know what I mean? What's that? Sorry, JP. What's that? Where's the chat? There's a question. Sorry if I missed it. If anybody's put in a comment about the Rodgers, just put it up again. Sorry, I've missed it. Sorry, just because we're talking here, I've missed the comment. But if you want to put it back up, I'll put it up. Sorry, I don't know who it is that's put it in. But on that, Shaun, do you feel what myself and Barry have said, or did you have another thing about him potentially leaving? But the thing that might concern me is, Shaun, is who comes in. It's not about him leaving, it's who comes in. Did he go for Knutsen again? Did he go for somebody foreign, or did he go try and maybe get somebody who's in the Premier League? I don't know how they go about, because see, if you look at, it's one thing I'll give the board credit for. Take away Tony Mowbray, right? Neil Lennon wasn't at the time, but Neil Lennon was a very good manager. Take away 1 season, right? The rest of their tenure, O'Neill, elite manager at the time. Oh, right, sorry, G-Doc. We're talking about some Rangers fan in the chat. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. In terms of, what was I saying there? You've got me off guard, mate. What was
You
I
were
saying
talking
there?
about the manager, mate. Who did we
Aye,
go for?
aye. As much as I have gave the board a wee bit of jip about maybe spending money and how we do things, but in terms of business sense, like Barry says, you cannot criticise the way the model is and how much money we've made and the profit and the trading model. You can't criticise that, because that's why we're so good at what we do. That's why when we lost the league and we then won it again right away, because we had that money sitting to go and give Ange money. So, but in terms of that side, I think it would be on the board, mate. And the manager, that's for me, it's who comes in, because, like I says, Gavin Mordew, O'Neill, elite. At the time, I was going to say Gavin Stratton. Gordon Stratton was a very experienced, good, Premier League solid manager, came in, successful. Ange might have not been Premier League, but experienced, winner, elite manager, what we all see now, and he done well. Neil Lennon, done well. Rodgers, elite, done well. So that's something that I know we're not going to watch this, but whoever's in a hierarchy, if you're going to buy a manager or bring a manager in, if they're elite, they'll bring you success. So if it means paying them £4 million a year, £5 million a year, they'll give you success. Don't go back to, listen, it could work, but see if it's like a John Kennedy or somebody young, that you might need to give them money and time. We all know, Shaun, at Celtic, we can't be second for 1 year. We can't be second for we can't have time. We need to win the league every year to get the European money, the European spaces, and the bigger competition you then make, the more money you make, and the bigger players you get. So, but what is your situation on the Brendan Rodgers camp, mate?
Well, the thing with the board as well, Ryan, you know, they are ambitious and they know, well, there you go. We were trying to get Eddie Howe in, you know, and it fell through at the final hour, but that shows you where the board's ambition was for the club and the type of manager they wanted in. And I agree with you, like, historically, the managers that have been at Celtic have been, you know, the board have done. They've done well, you know, they've done their due diligence, and Neil Lennon, you know, gets overlooked because of the COVID season, but, you know, he secured the quadruple treble, you know, and Ange, you know, they'd obviously done their homework on Ange, and they acted quick after Howe left his, you know, left us up shit creek, you know. So in the final hour as well. So that was like a, you know, but I've got every faith in the board going forward. If Rodgers doesn't renew or extend his contract further, I have got every faith in the board that they will have the right man to come in. But on Rodgers, I would like to see Rodgers maybe extend with Celtic for even just another season. I do think that there is enough there for him to get deep into with Celtic. I certainly think he would fancy another treble. You know, he's keen on a treble, Rodgers. So that'll lead to him on. You know, he's competitive and he's constantly ambitious with Celtic. He's a Celtic man. And I've really enjoyed his second tenure at Celtic. You know, he left on bad terms with a lot of the fans, but I, for one, was delighted to see him come back up the road with his bag of cans and his philosophy. And but I think that, as I said, I do think there is enough there for Brendan Rodgers to stay, but he does need backing. He does need to. The board, they need to give him the money that he's to spend, and like Barry says, you know, give him a bumper contract, let him know that he's valued, you know, financially. Pay him what he's delivered. You know, he's delivered for Celtic. He's done so. You know, the 2 seasons he's come in. So, and he will do in his third season. You know, so I back him with the money. Give him a big bumper salary and see if it can keep him a wee bit longer. But if no, like I said, I would be getting up my arms and panicking, and you know, because the board have delivered with managers for Celtic, and I do believe they will continue to do that, right?
Like you said, you mentioned Eddie Howe. Again, people might not agree with me, but I think Eddie Howe would have been the exact same as Ange. I think we'd have been so successful with Eddie Howe. I rate Eddie Howe really highly. I couldn't believe we were going to get him. I was really buzzing off him coming in, but obviously, who knows? Was that a blessing? Who knows getting Ange? But the last bit to yourself, Barry. Obviously Portugal at the weekend. I know you're back in with Shaun as well with Portugal. Last wee bit, mate. What's your thoughts on the game at the weekend? And hopefully we'll see guys like KT and Nygren and maybe some minutes for Hatate and Maeda if they're back fitness, mate.
Yeah, just to touch on what Sean said there and all, but Brendan coming back up with his bag of cans and his philosophy. Don't forget his Gucci Crocs. Oh, this is a man of high class. No, I've really enjoyed the viewers' comments tonight as well. There's been some really cool, accurate comments there. And that one somebody mentioned there about KT. Would KT have signed a long-term contract with Celtic if, and they'll be talking in layman's terms behind the scenes, KT will ask Brendan, are you here for one more year or what's your plans? So that might be a wee inclination that Brendan's at least willing to stay a bit longer. But yeah, looking forward to the weekend, Ryan. Looking forward to the game, as you say. Looking forward to seeing some of the boys who haven't participated yet. I don't know if Nygren will be in the squad. I hope he is. I mean, get a wee look at him. But I'll be keeping an eye on Yamada as well and seeing how he can perform, with step up a level. But it's just nice to know Celtic are playing at the weekend and I'm looking forward to it. Yep, Giant G, Tom Ford as well. I mean, the guys, a bit of class here, there, and everywhere.
And yourself, Shaun, what's your thoughts on the game at the weekend and obviously what Barry says there?
Just same as Barry, mate, same as yourself. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing if any of the new boys, Yamada getting maybe some minutes. I can never say that name right. Maybe
Wisha.
Aye. But I just really look forward to it, mate, and just seeing how things progress as the weeks goes on. I've got full confidence in, Celtic, the board delivering, Brendan's style of play next season. You know what you're going to get. It's probably going to be, I think there's more levels to what Celtic have shown already, which has been incredible, thus far. So I'm just really excited, mate, and last season we got a really good pre-season under my belt and we came out the blocks flying. So, and these were players, it's a good, the nucleus of the team's still pretty much the same. So I'm very interested to see what these guys are like with another pre-season under their belt. They've had a full season to get to know what Rodgers wants from them, the demands, the physical demands, what the league offers, the Champions League. So I'm just really looking forward to the season starting now, mate, and it starts in pre-season. These games are ahead.
That's it, mate. Hopefully, we'll see somebody, if you want to call them, some of the first teamers on Saturday. And obviously Newcastle the following week. I think you might see some of the guys there. And then obviously the Como one will be interesting because obviously America last year, when we went to America, we've seen how we're going to play. And maybe that's the same for Como. Maybe he's keeping that good full first team, try to get the signings in for Como. And then we'll see, right, this is the Celtic team because we've seen snippets in America. Barry spoke about it last week with JP as well, about how that's where you got a sense of what was going to come and the way we're going to play with Nicholas Kuhn, and Maeda was really good as well. So hoping that's the case. Really enjoyed tonight, lads. Been good to delve into some of the topics. Longer than I thought, but with Celtic, nothing's too long, and we can always talk about Celtic, and there's loads of things, like you say, Shaun, we could talk about Ralston in 2 weeks' time about loads of things. So, like Barry said as well, I appreciate the following tonight, the viewers and the comments. Please like and subscribe. Any subscription and likes helps us get out there. It helps us put the content to you. We will be back next week. I think we're back Monday. We'll let you enjoy your weekend, watch the game and have a few beers, or if you're not drinking, go and have some social drinks, some cokes and some loads of water, because keep hydrated, because it will be very warm at the weekend. So spend time with your family and make sure you get the Factor 50 on, because I will, because my face is a wee bit burnt at the moment. But Shaun, Barry, it's been good to chat to you. Hope to see you very soon. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all soon, lads.
Thanks for hosting, Ryan. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks,
cheers, lads.
Hail,
cheers,
hail.
guys. Hail, hail.
Bye.
Sets up Larsson here. Larsson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! O'Reilly, how about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik Larsson, and Rodgers! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!